Elishnish followed Lord Mayor through the curtained door frame and across the back hall, into a large room arrayed with modest oak furniture. He brought her to a couch, where he released her hand and bid her be seated. She sat down beside him, lightly pinching his sleeve between the fingers of her left hand as she took in her surroundings. Around the room were what she assumed to be trophies and mementos of past kills: the head of a griffin, a manticore hide, bits and pieces of once living things arrayed in glass cabinets. There was a large portrait on the wall behind their seat, depicting a group of humanoids with wicked-looking weapons standing around a dead dragon. It was a juvenile, based on its appearance. Elishnish shuddered, glancing at the closed door not far from the portrait. It didn't lead into the hall, and she couldn't sense anything behind it, but it seemed a likely place to harbor hidden assailants. Lady Aura frowned at them before seating herself on the other side of Lord Mayor, while Mary glared daggers at Elishnish from where she stood behind the couch. What was she, some sort of bodyguard? An attendant? She didn't even look like the same sort of elf as the other two, yet she hovered protectively over them like a harpy over her infants. Elishnish turned away from the angry elf and faced forward. Mr. Reinsack took the couch across the table from them, while Winner retrieved a tea set from a nearby cabinet before vanishing into the hall. "So, what's the deal with this woman?" Lady Aura asked. "She doesn't look very useful to me." "She's going to help design a new wing of the training area," Lord Mayor explained. "With the expedition coming up, Shaltir lent her to us so we could create environments that have similar conditions to what you can find in the Azalizia Mountains." "She was?" All Lady Shaltir told her was that she was to cooperate with Lord Mayor. "How would she know what it's like there?" Mr. Reinsack asked. How? Mayor frowned. "Because she lived there before coming here?" Shaltir said she knows all about the Azalizia Mountains, so she's basically a local expert. "I see," Mr. Reinsack said, holding his hand out across the table. "I'm Pluton Reinsack, Master of the Adventurer Guild. Pleased to meet you, miss." She gave the extended hand a hesitant glance. This was the guild master? The leader of the adventurers? Elishnish sensed some power in him, but he wasn't as strong as the elf called Mary. She was certain she could fight both of them at once and win in a direct confrontation. "Shiver," she replied, reaching out to lightly touch his hand. The guildmaster moved suddenly, taking her hand in both of his and shaking vigorously. It was all Elishnish could do to snatch herself away with a panicked shout. "Shiver, eh?" He grinned. "Well, I suppose it's a name that suits that frozen place. I guess you're from the Dwarf Kingdom?" To be honest, I didn't know anyone aside from dwarves lived there. Ah, he was one of those. Like so many other humans in the city, they had a very narrow view of who they considered people. Elishnish withdrew her hand slowly, holding it against her stomach. "Fioberkana," she replied. "That's where I came from." "Oh, the dwarves I've talked to were all pretty excited to move back in." Jovial energy filled Mr. Reinsack's voice. "You must have been busy moving in as well, so I gotta thank you for taking the time to come out here to help us out." No, it's not like that at all. I had to move out since the dwarves were moving in." "Huh? What does that mean?" The cordial warmth faded from Mr. Reinsack's face, replaced by a look of befuddlement over her reply. "Shiver is a frost dragon, Mr. Reinsack," Lord Mayor informed him. And, just like that, she was exposed. A frown crossed the guildmaster's features. Elishnish's breathing picked up as she started to panic. She clutched at Lord Mayor's sleeve several times before finally throwing her arms around him and squeezing her eyes shut. What were the adventurers going to do to her, now that they knew and had her in the bowels of their nest? "Whoa. Calm down." Lord Mayor placed a hand on the arm wrapped over his chest. "Why are you so scared?" "Adventurers," Elishnish replied in a trembling voice. "Adventurers?" Lord Mayor said. "What about them?" "Adventurers," Elishnish swallowed. "They're those crazy murderers, aren't they? Bounty hunters that kill people for money and harvest bodies to turn into equipment so they can kill more people for even better equipment." If you put it that way," the dark elf swallowed as well. "That does sound pretty scary." Lord Mayor looked across at Mr. Reinsack. The guildmaster sighed, scratching his head. "Damn it all," he said. "His Majesty had me dead to rights, huh? Did Lord Iron say something to you about her?" Lady Aura asked. "No, not her in particular," the guildmaster answered. Back when His Majesty first came to talk about the future of the Adventurer Guild, he asked me a question. He asked me who exactly adventurers saw as people. He said that the Sorceress Kingdom would be a place where all races could live, but I assumed that he meant dwarves and elves and others like that. Then he corrected me and said that he would include all races, whether they were monsters or humans or anything else. I argued against it, but no matter which way I twisted or turned, he blew it all away and revealed me for the bigot I was. Mr. Reinsack looked over at Ilishnish's quivering form. Even though all this has happened, he waved his right hand loosely in the air. The founding of the Sorceress Kingdom. That time with His Majesty. The opening of the demi-human quarter and the folks helping us in the training area, it just keeps coming back. I just assumed she was from the Dwarf Kingdom, though, in hindsight, it doesn't make any real sense. It just never crossed my mind that she might be anything else, or maybe I just willfully blinded myself to the facts and made up something that I thought could be plausible on the spot. Somewhere in the back of my mind, only the fair races still count as people. His Majesty spoke truly, all the way back then. He rose from his seat. The Guildmaster snorted, and a self-deprecating look formed on his face. Fair races, yet one of the most beautiful women I've ever laid eyes on turns out to be a dragon. He lowered his head, voice solemn. I'm sorry, Miss Shiver. I probably said some horrible things. From your point of view, I hope you'll find it in your heart to forgive me for that. Ilishnish peeked up at the lowered head of the Guildmaster, then down at Lord Mayor, whose head was still squished into her chest. He nodded up at her slowly. She slowly relaxed and, with a sigh, released her hold on him. Lord Mayor let out a startled yelp as Lady Aura yanked him away. It's okay, she said quietly, settling back into her seat. Good, Mr. Reinsack let out a tense breath. Good. I can't guarantee that you won't run into more of the same with our members, but I hope you'll show us some patience while you help us out. Lady Shultier dispatched me to the Adventurer Guild with instructions to cooperate with Lord Mayor, Ilishnish said, but I'm afraid I don't have any specific details about what I'm supposed to be helping with. Ah, that? The Guildmaster said, I guess word of our training doesn't really filter out of the guild too much. Basically, we need to create a training environment for cold, alpine areas. We have some expedition work around the Azalizia range coming up, so we're making the appropriate preparations for it. Winnery appeared, placing the pewter tea set on the table and pouring out their drinks. A steaming cup was placed in front of her. Ilishnish could see places where it had been dented and straightened out in several places, another reminder of the violent nature of adventurers. If it's just making sure that everything feels right, Ilishnish said, I think I can help with that. If it's fighting, though, I'm just a beginner, so I don't have much confidence in what I'm doing. Anything that'll help us prepare properly for what lies ahead, the Guildmaster picked up his teacup, I'll be more than happy with. Once you see what we're up to, maybe you'll be up to having a few rounds with our members. But I'm just a frost dragon, Ilishnish said, eyes growing wide. I can't win against adventurers. The Guildmaster's cup stopped as he paused mid-sip. Lowering it slightly, he looked over Ilishnish's shoulder. Mary, he said, didn't you say that she's in the realm of heroes? Yep, the elf replied in a flat voice, in various ways. Ilishnish felt Mary's glare against the back of her neck, and she shifted forward in her seat uncomfortably. That's what I figured too, Mr. Reinsack said. I'm not sure what you've heard about our Adventurer Guild, but if we exclude Moman and Nobby, you'd probably defeat the entire guild, even if they all fought you at the same time. Really? Ilishnish replied, but I thought adventurers don't die, even when they're killed. I can't win against that, they'll get me eventually. We may be able to raise the dead, but our members don't just pop up on their own again like some undead thing from a drunken bard's tale. I've never even seen undead get up after destroying them once. Well, we don't have any undead adventurers anyways. But Lady Shultier said she had another vassal here. The vast majority of Lady Shultier's servants Ilishnish had encountered were the vampire brides stationed at the post offices. Now that she understood that adventurers weren't their own terrifying species, she figured that the vassal Lady Shultier had mentioned that was also an adventurer was another vampire bride. They had the same loose sense of danger as Mary, so they would fit in well. A vassal? Mr. Reinsack said, oh, you mean Zaradnik. She might stand out in a few ways, but she's still just a human like most of us. The girl grew up around these parts, so there's no mistake about that. Or so she thought. How did a human even survive being a vassal of Lady Shiltier? Anyways, was there anything else worrying you? Lord Mayor asked. Even if they're only so strong, Elishnish said, won't they still try to attack me? Adventurers are crazy about magic equipment and crafting materials, after all. I can't say that's wrong, but... Mr. Reinsack frowned in thought. At any rate, since you're a subject of the Sorceress Kingdom, they won't attack you unless it's a part of training or something. You shouldn't have to worry about that at all. Elishnish mulled over what she had heard, then remembered Lady Shiltier's advice. Pulling out her notepad, she started recording hard-to-remember details. An awkward silence filled the room, occasionally broken by the scratching of her pen. Any more talking is pointless, Lady Aura said after a few minutes. Why is that? Mr. Reinsack asked. I just spoke with her brother, Lady Aura answered. He said that it's better to just throw her into the fire. Elishnish's pen stopped. The fire? Maybe Hejinmal wasn't such a good brother, after all. I might have a fire resistance item. Elishnish clutched at Lord Mayor again, but fire is still bad. Big sis means that it's better to just have you learn from experience, Lord Mayor explained, taking her hand again and rising from the couch. I can show you the place where we're preparing everything, and you can see things as they happen while making suggestions. It sounded reasonable enough. All she needed to do was stay quiet, keep her head down, cooperate with Lord Mayor, and she would be safe. Probably. The dark elf led her back out of the room and out in front of the counter with the two human females. The pair looked up from their conversation, and Ishpan came forward with a sheet of paper in her hands. Guildmaster. I was filling out a registration form for the young lady here, Ishpan told Mr. Reinsack, but we weren't quite able to finish it. I didn't think she was interested in joining. The Guildmaster stroked his moustache idly. Wait, don't tell me you tried to sneak in an application. Ishpan cringed slightly, a guilty look briefly passing over her features. She seemed to collect herself, however, pointing directly at Elishnish. Just look at her, Guildmaster, she said. She's perfect, no, beyond perfect. She's exactly what we need to market the Adventurer Guild. Did you know she's a bard? A dancer, even. Our recruitment will skyrocket if she becomes affiliated with us. I won't deny that, the Guildmaster said, but I'm not even sure how to place her, off the top of my head. That aside, we have rules, Ishpan. You can't just press her into adventurer work like that. Fine. Ishpan sighed, then the ingratiating smile from before appeared on her face again. Miss Shiva, she said in a too nice voice, would you like to join the Adventurer Guild? I'm sure you'll have a bright future with us. Elishnish backed away slightly from the pressure Ishpan was emanating. Was this fighting spirit? Killing intent? Master Tian sometimes referred to them when instructing his students. I'm just here to cooperate with Lord Mayor. This isn't just any adventurer guild, Ishpan told her. This is the Adventurer Guild of the Sorceress Kingdom. You'll be a true adventurer, exploring the world and uncovering its mysteries. You'll become famous around the world, the envy of adventurers everywhere. While the idea of exploring the world was genuinely tempting, it didn't match up with what she knew of the Adventurer Guild. What did taking contracts on the lives of others have to do with exploration? The part about becoming the envy of adventurers everywhere also sounded very much like she would be painting a target on herself. I'm sorry, she said, but I don't. As an exclusive affiliate of the Adventurer Guild, Ishpan's words rolled right over her refusal. You will also receive a monthly stipend. A stipend? Elishnish forced out the unfamiliar word. What's that? Simply put, as long as you remain affiliated with the Adventurer Guild, and participate in our activities, you'll be paid every month. Everyone starts at copper rank, which covers the expenses for living in the city while you train. That would come out to roughly 1 gold per month. That was far less than she could earn, even if it was just performing deliveries in the city. Then again, her current situation didn't allow time for her to work at all. I'm sure you won't remain at copper for long, though, Ishpan continued. Mary mentioned you were already in the realm of heroes. That means you'll be rapidly advancing through the ranks. Even if you just catch up to our gold-ranked members, your stipend will increase to 6 gold per month. 6 gold, it was far better, but the amount was still far overshadowed by her previous earnings. "How high does it go?" Elishnish asked. "Much higher." Ishpan's expression brightened. "An oracle come here like Mary collects 6 platinum a month." "Collects?" Mary frowned. "You make it sound like I'm sitting around doing nothing all day." "And an entry-level adamantite adventurer earns 12. Entry-level?" "That's right." Ishpan nodded. "Those who reach the realm of heroes are paid 3 times that amount, 36 platinum a month. Since Mary estimated that you're up there already, it's only a matter of time before you establish it as a fact." 36 platinum coins, that could buy far more books than she would be able to keep up with. If she joined the Adventurer Guild for a few thousand years, she could have the platinum coin bed of her dreams. She could mix in plenty of diamonds to make it even better. But what was the catch? Surely they didn't just pay her for existing. Ishpan said something about marketing, and Ishpan a finger up over their heads, breaking Elishnish's line of thought. "And that's not all. The monthly stipend is the least of our member benefits. You'll gain access to our classes and state-of-the-art training facilities found nowhere else in the world. We have resurrection services, just in case you meet with an unfortunate accident. Then there's the ultra-exclusive Adventurer Guild store, where points earned with the guild go towards purchasing the finest in magic items and equipment from the Sorcerer's Kingdom." Ishpan's heavy breathing filled the silence that followed, and Elishnish absently fished around for the opening of her infinite haversack. Her mind was swimming. She didn't know what most of it meant. She needed to write it all down. She did have some magical items from the Sorcerer's Kingdom already. If she could get her claws on more, who knows how powerful she would become. She might at least be able to purchase a greater measure of protection than she currently had. "All you have to do is sign here, Miss Shiver." Ishpan dangled the sheet of paper in her hands between them, "and the fantastic life of an adventurer is yours." But I already work for Lady Shultier," Elishnish told her. "Well, so does Ludmilla," Ishpan said. "You could have a special arrangement just like her." Elishnish's pen slowly rose. "No, wait," the pen lowered again. "I need to speak with her first. She keeps me busy, after all, so I don't know if I have any time." Ishpan's cheek twitched, and Mr. Ironsack cleared his throat. "Let's leave it at that," he said. "Honestly, it looks like you're interested, but, if you need to consult with Lady Shultier, then it's probably best to do that first. I don't want the Adventurer Guild stepping on the toes of the royal court if I can help it. I have no idea what your schedule's like, but if she was willing to send a busy noble like Ludmilla over to us, chances are that you'll be able to join as well." The group filtered out of the Adventurer Guild and into the bustle of the main plaza at midday. Though many distractions assailed her senses, Elishnish made extra sure to follow Lord Mayor closely. She didn't want to lose him and somehow get into trouble again. "Guess we'll be heading back out to the expedition base," Lady Aura said. "Was there anything in town you needed to pick up, Mary?" "No, Lady Aura." The red-haired elfstone took on a deferential quality, distinctly unlike how she had spoken to Elishnish or Mr. Ironsack. "We should return to base camp. The scouts have probably gotten themselves into 8 different kinds of trouble by now. How did they even manage whatever happened with the hanging spider colony last night?" Lady Aura frowned and shook her head. "That forest is nothing but low-level things, but they somehow find a way." Her voice cut off as she slipped into a nearby tree and vanished. Mary followed suit, and Elishnish leaned over to look at the other side of the trunk. They had completely disappeared from her senses. But how did slipping into a tree do that? How did they even slip into a tree in the first place? "Are you going as well, Mr. Ironsack?" Lord Mayor asked. "Nah, I've got the reports Mary just delivered to go over," Mr. Ironsack answered. "I have to run all over the city dropping off these samples, too." "Oh. Okay. Did they find anything interesting?" "The expedition area isn't far from the city," the guildmaster replied, "so I'd be surprised if they found anything new. There are the things you'd expect, but beyond that." He shrugged, as if the movement explained anything else he had to say. Elishnish frowned as her imagination was cast adrift. "I see," Lord Mayor said. "Then, we should get going. Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Ironsack." The guildmaster turned back around, but rather than returning to the adventurer den, he made his way out of the plaza. Lord Mayor turned to Elishnish. "Would you like to go and speak with Shultier before we go?" Me? Elishnish blinked. Lord Mayor was so strong, and he barely knew her at all. Why did it matter what she wanted? He nodded. I have some things to check on in the demi-human quarter, so you can drop by and ask her about the Adventurer Guild before we go to the training area. If it's not a bother, Elishnish replied. Actually, do you have any idea how she will respond, Lord Mayor? I'd like to avoid angering her, if possible. Why would she get angry? I don't know, Elishnish said, and that's what scares me the most. Every time I open my mouth, I wonder if I'll get punished or not. It really might not seem like it to people that don't know her, Lord Mayor said, but Shiltir has always been pretty considerate of her vassals. Well, except for the vampire brides, but that's the way they're supposed to be. If she's punishing you, then you probably did something that you shouldn't have, or you were really rude somehow. Maybe you don't know enough yet and that's why it feels that way, but I don't think you'll get in trouble just for asking about the Adventurer Guild. Lord Mayor walked off towards the main street, and Elishnish followed him. They cut through the central district, following the road north until they reached the gatehouse leading into the demi-human quarter. Lord Mayor stopped along the side of the street, across from the orphanage near the steps up to the Frost Dragon pens. Go on ahead, he told her. I'll come to pick you up after I'm done here. Elishnish hesitated, but Lord Mayor turned around and walked away without so much as a second glance. Her gaze lingered on him until he disappeared around a street corner. Taking a deep breath, Elishnish ascended the steps to the Frost Dragon pens. When she reached the top of the wall, Elishnish saw that the entire front half of the living space had been taken apart, and work on the hoardings was being done. There were no customers lined up at the front desk, but the vampire brides were all gathered there. Lady Shiltir stood in their midst, watching the proceedings. Elishnish quietly walked up to the counter and cleared her throat. Lady Shiltir. Lady Shiltir turned at the sound of her voice, looking up at Elishnish with a suspicious frown. Don't tell me that you ran away. No, my lady. Elishnish quickly replied, I went as you instructed. Lord Mayor had something to do in the demi-human quarter, so he suggested that I come up and speak with you. Oh? What about? A clamor filled the air, and Elishnish raised her head towards its source. The walls of one of the pens further inside had been brought down, and a team of dwarves wandered around removing the rubble. I heard that there were going to be renovations, Elishnish said as she watched them work, but what's being changed, exactly? We're fixing up the Eyrie, Lady Shiltir told her. The accommodations for frost dragons are being reduced from 18 to 6, and some expansion is being done besides. The post office is being moved down to the ground level. There will be one just below in the demi-human quarter, with a larger one facing the main plaza. If I may ask, my lady, is there a reason for this? Elishnish asked. I have taxes to put to work, Lady Shiltir answered, so the development schedule for the aerial transportation network is being pushed forward. These pens were never meant to be permanent anyway, they were just what we could put together on short notice. The new rooms for the dragons here will be 4 times larger. Did you want to keep your broom closet, perhaps? No, my lady, Elishnish shook her head. I just thought you didn't care about our living conditions. Probably not in the sense that you're implying, Lady Shiltir said, but I do endeavor to ensure my subordinates have the environment that they require to function properly. It takes time and information to plan out what needs to be done with you newcomers, so appropriate measures take a while to implement. Did that mean that there were more changes on the way? Having their cramped accommodations expanded was certainly an improvement. But there's 19 of us, Elishnish noted with a careful voice. There will be 6 frost dragons permanently based in Erantle for the foreseeable future, Lady Shiltir explained. In general, accommodations will be constructed at our busiest cargo hubs. As far as immediate plans are concerned, another 2 rooms will be built at Fio Burkana whenever they fix up that surface outpost of theirs. You'll have to share rooms for a little while, but, as the network expands and we determine the best locations for new hubs, there will be private lodgings available for everyone. I understand, my lady, Elishnish said. There was actually something else. The Adventurer Guild wants me to join them, Elishnish said. I mean, they wanted me to become an adventurer. Is that so? Lady Shiltir replied absently as she watched the next wall go down. You seem terrified of adventurers for some silly reason, so I assume that you refused? The woman there was so aggressive about it that I'd have run away if Lord Mayor wasn't there. I told them I work for you, and that we were really busy, but I said I would ask. Lady Shiltir looked back up at Elishnish, and her lips turned up in a slight smile. Elishnish had seen this expression before. She braced herself, squeezing her eyes shut, not that it closed off her blind sight. If that is what you would like to do, the vampire's silvery voice chimed up at her, then you may do so by my leave. Eh? Elishnish's eyes popped back open. Just remember that your duties come first and foremost, Lady Shiltir told her, and that you are to conduct yourself in a manner befitting one of my subordinates. If that's the case, my lady, Elishnish said, I'll barely have any time for the Adventurer Guild, won't I? You'll have ample opportunity to participate, Lady Shiltir replied. Since Mayor is such a perfectionist, I've set aside a large block of time for you to assist him. Beyond that, I've removed you from the delivery schedule. Elishnish blinked, not quite believing what she had just heard. What of the cargo deliveries that are due? Elishnish asked. The Dwarven migration, we've been flying all day and night. We're pretty much done, Lady Shiltir said. How long do you think we've been moving cargo for? They can only stuff so much in that mountain of theirs. Our flights and sledges between locations in the Dwarf Kingdom have been running at 5% capacity for the last week using our old schedule, so the majority are being recalled. We're moving on to the next phase of our work with the aerial transportation network, and a number of your fellows will be taking over your route. Then what of me, my lady? Does that mean I'll be with the Adventurer Guild from now on? Remember what I said, your duties come first and foremost. For the time being, you will continue undergoing preparations for your work in the future. You will also now report to Sabos for 2 days out of the week to continue the training he is providing to you. But what about Tswer, my lady? Elishnish asked. I'm certain she tried to get rid of me, she might do it again. Tswer has no authority over my subordinates, Lady Shiltir scoffed, and Sabos will not do anything that oversteps his bounds. Furthermore, you will also continue to help Mayor and the Adventurer Guild when they require your assistance. During the remainder of your time, you will be learning the customs, languages and mannerisms of the peoples that live in the city and visit from abroad. Elishnish grew curious over Lady Shiltir's words. They seemed to be going in a much different direction than she had initially expected. Is there someone I should report to for this, my lady? No. You will learn by observing the city and interacting with its people. You may visit any place you wish. You may even perform to hone your artistic skills and earn some coin if you desire. However, you are only allowed to do so within the city walls. You will behave yourself, keep your abilities in check, and refrain from spreading any rumors or breaking any laws. I don't understand, my lady, Elishnish dared to ask. After everything that's happened, why the sudden change in my treatment? No changes to your treatment have occurred, Lady Shiltir answered. You have always been where I've decided to place you, and I dislike repeating myself. Then, what did you mean by future duties? They are whatever they will be, Lady Shiltir said. In the near term, should you prove yourself capable, you will be exploring new routes for the aerial transportation network. It will be regional, at first, but eventually, you will travel the length and breadth of the world, learning all that it has to offer. That is your dream, is it not? How did you know that? Heginmol told me, Lady Shiltir shrugged. Your mother, as well. They spoke to you on my behalf? No, it was the other way around. A dragon with job class levels is unheard of, where I come from. Naturally, I went around asking and learned quite a few things about you. They're both quite chatty, I could barely keep up with my notes. Elishnish hoped that they didn't tell her anything embarrassing. Actually, it was more likely that they spilt out everything they knew. A sigh escaped her lips. Now Lady Shiltir had even more leverage over her. Is it not something that you want anymore? Lady Shiltir asked. It is something that I want, my lady, Elishnish replied, but the world is proving to be a rather ridiculous place. This is why you need to prepare, Lady Shiltir said, and prepare you, I will. You will be trained and tested with all I have at my disposal, punished, if you provide me with reason to. But why me? Why you? Do you not understand what you are? Elishnish shook her head. You are a dragon, Lady Shiltir said, a being that grows not just in power over the ages, but also in intellect and wisdom. Not only that, You are a frost dragon with all of the advantages inherent to your kind. Moreover, you are a talented bard. Have you not considered what it all entails when put together? She was simply what she was. Ilishnish couldn't draw any connections between the things Lady Shultier had outlined. So what if she was everything described? She had no real ambitions beyond doing what Lady Shultier had just mentioned, no great imaginings for herself. Please, my lady, Ilishnish said, I'm not good at guessing like this. Maybe my mother would be able to give you the answer that you seek, but I'm too young and inexperienced. You sell yourself short, Lady Shultier said. You have already proven how resourceful and cunning you can be, how well you can learn and adapt. You've spent one day out of the week in this city, effectively 7 days since you came here, yet consider all that you've learned. It is no small feat. Lady Shultier reached out, pressing her hand against Ilishnish's belly. Ilishnish jumped away by reflex, wrapping her arms defensively over where Lady Shultier had touched her. You've also done so with quite the handicap, Lady Shultier smirked, so I imagine things will go more smoothly after it has passed. Do you think the others of your enclave would be able to achieve what you have? No, my lady. Not even Heginmil? Heginmil does have an interest in learning and exploration, Ilishnish replied, but we do not share the same outlook on life, my lady. His path is not the same as my own. It's always interesting to see how different you frost dragons are from other people, Lady Shultier mused. My lady. Lady Shultier came forward, wrapping an arm around Ilishnish's waist. She drew her away from the sight of the pens being torn down, leading her to the edge of the wall to look over the demi-human quarter. Ilishnish, Lady Shultier said. I consider you to be the most promising out of all of the frost dragons who have come into the service of His Majesty. But potential is only potential until it is realized. Talent is worthless without opportunity. Tell me, what are your feelings on how the people here view your kind? I don't like it, my lady, Ilishnish said. It's as if we're considered animals, or savage monsters. They would not be wrong to see you that way, Lady Shultier told her, if I were to be perfectly blunt. You are a frost dragon, impulsive, selfish and willful, an arrogant, capricious and ruthless predator. If circumstances remained unchanged from your earlier existence, I'm sure that any of these people would have been a snack at best if they had the misfortune of encountering one of your kind in the Azalisia Mountains. Ilishnish couldn't say that it wouldn't be the case, it was actually highly likely, nearly a guarantee. These people currently see you in the trappings of what amounts to superiority in this world, Lady Shultier continued, the threat that you represent to them. Very few understand that the gifts that adorn you in these trappings are also a curse, chains that bind you to a stagnant existence where your nature may easily supersede your will, but I do. Amongst your kin, you have shown the greatest resilience against this nature, so I have decided to take you under my wing. But we are already your servants, my lady, Ilishnish said. Vassals who carry out your bidding. There are vassals, Lady Shultier said, and there are vassals. What I require from you is not simply strength or talent. You must shed your selfishness and shallow pride if you are to don the mantle of honored service. The nature that constantly rises to rule you must be broken down and reforged into an instrument to be employed at your discretion. Only by taking steps to achieve this will you also make yourself ready to take steps towards the future I envision for you. If it's not too much to ask, my lady, Ilishnish said, what is it that you have in mind for my future? You still haven't figured it out yet? Lady Shultier gave her a sidelong look. Well, I suppose it may serve as motivation of sorts. Ilishnish was released, Lady Shultier's cool hand slipping off of her hip and lightly tracing its way back across her waist. Turning to stand and face her, Lady Shultier cast what Ilishnish could only consider to be a regal gaze upon her. Even in Ilishnish's human appearance, Lady Shultier did not even crest her shoulder, yet she felt as if the powerful woman was looking down at her from some height beyond her reach. Ilishnish swallowed, fighting the urge to shrink in on herself. You will become an icon of the realm, Lady Shultier spoke in a voice meant for their ears alone, an exemplar of dragon kind, both within and beyond the borders of His Majesty's realm. More importantly, you will be an incorruptible repository of the history, lore and knowledge of the Sorceress Kingdom, a font of culture and wisdom that spans all of the ages between now and eternity. I have great expectations for you, but the proper foundations must first be laid before you can build towards this future. Ilishnish tried to wrap her head around what Lady Shultier described, but everything she could imagine merely amounted to what she had witnessed in her brief existence. She was also aware of something else. As lofty as Lady Shultier's words sounded, they also carried an undercurrent that added a shadowy weight to her voice. "There's something else, isn't there?" She couldn't help but ask. I can sense it behind your words." "Indeed, there is." Lady Shultier's crimson eyes gleamed, taking on a hard edge. "You remind me of someone from the past, and I cannot stomach the thought of her." Lady Shultier stepped closer, her intense gaze filling Elishnish with a sense of unease. "I will hammer you until the chains that bind you to your nature are broken." Elise'_ish=Verilyn. A chilling smile formed over Lady Shultier's features. "So try not to break first." Shultier's gaze idly followed the alluring movements of the dragon-turned-human's body as Mare led her away. This much was acceptable, she supposed. Elishnish appeared to be following the instructions to suppress her abilities and minimize her presence. What remained was a fragment of her substantial natural charm that leaked out to those capable of noticing her. The assessment that she shared with the Frost Dragon was not an exaggeration in any way. She appeared to be a prodigy in her own right, and the nature that could override her sense was a major obstacle that kept her from fully realizing her potential. When Elishnish finally did master that nature and establish the appropriate foundations, Shultier Bloodfallen would have the full power of a talented draconic bard at her fingertips. A subordinate well worth the investment, she thought, one who would help to address several significant weaknesses in the structure of her growing organization, and a crucial piece in its future expansion. She idly wondered about other individuals she could extend her influence over. Albedo and Demiurge still seemed to only value those with singularly superlative ability as worthy of their patronage, so there should be many others overlooked. Shultier was slowly drawing Leanne Wagner and Florine Garnier into her camp, but Clara Corlin was much harder to work on. Any inkling of her interest in the Countess would have Albedo react to interfere with her maneuvering, while she came into contact with Wagner and Garnier for reasons normally related to her own duties. Fortunately, having all three of Clara Corlin's closest friends in her pocket would most likely serve her purposes indirectly. Actually, Ludmilla was probably enough, given their relationship. Beyond them, she needed more talented individuals in all fields, ready to be employed should Ein Summer bless her with further duties. She turned her attention back to the ongoing renovation of the Dragonary. Ludmilla's taxes had arrived with uncanny timing, allowing her to contract a new company of dwarf architects that had just established itself in their mountain kingdom. They probably expected to be working on the restoration of Fio-Burkana rather than being whisked away to Eranthal, but they more than happily took her full payment of coin, up front. While they were here, she was trying to impress upon them the cost-effectiveness of undead labor and the benefits of collaboration with the Sorceress Kingdom, but that was yet another reason that she needed more talented agents. With her exposure to everything under the Sorceress Kingdom's influence, opportunities abounded. She needed more people to take advantage of everything she was made aware of. After a time, she decided that there was no purpose in lingering any further and moved on to the next point on her itinerary. With vampire brides in tow, she floated down from the wall and into the central district, making her way along the boulevard to the entrance of the government warehouse. Already, a long line of Soul Eaters drawing wagons filled with grain awaited processing. Though these shipments were the taxes collected from the devastated portions of the royal domain that had been resettled, they still followed a convoluted route before they reached their final destination. The harvest was collected from the lands to the north and northwest, delivered to Eranthal under the pretense that they were dropping off their taxes in the government warehouse. From there, they were transferred via gate to the Great Tomb of Nazarick, which was basically in the opposite direction that they had traveled. While she understood that it was for security concerns, minimizing the awareness of the nearby guild base amongst the general public, her efforts devising efficient logistical schemes for the aerial transportation network made her itch to fix it somehow. Shultier walked into the heavily guarded entrance of the government warehouse and down the ramp into the cavernous, lightless space. Halfway into the bowels of the warehouse, she found the head of the line. Gate. A portal appeared, wide enough for the queued wagons to make their way through. "You three," she addressed the vampire brides who had accompanied her, "stay here and help direct traffic on this side." "Understood, Shultier Summer." They lowered their heads in unison, and Shultier stepped through the gate. "Welcome back, Shultier Summer," Pestonia's placid voice greeted her on the other side. "How are we doing on this side?" Shiltir asked. Preparations have been completed, Pestonia replied. We await delivery. 1. The landing area of the gate brought the awaiting wagons of grain to an area near the front entrance of the Nazarick. A short distance away, there was a ramp leading up to a raised platform, beneath which was placed a bin for dumping grain. From that bin rose a long metal tube that fed into a single, raised silo beside it. Where have I seen this before? It's a common device used by the locals for moving any number of things, Pestonia explained. The Death Knights will work a mechanism that drives the screw inside the pipe, which carries the load up with it as it turns. Grain, soil, water, it appears to be applied quite widely throughout the region. I see. Where's Pandora's actor? On the other side of the silo, by the cabin, I believe. 1. Pestonia led Shiltir around the silo, and they found Baroness Wagner near the log cabin in front of Nazarick's outer gate. Attended by 3 elder liches, the human noble held a clipboard before her. She tapped a pen against her lip while furrowing her brow at its content. Shiltir glanced around as she approached the group. Though they had been carried over into the Sorceress Kingdom's new administration, the nobles were not permitted to come within sight of Nazarick. Never mind that, Nazarick's existence shouldn't even be known to the citizens, save for a few privileged individuals. The Baroness looked up at her approach. Tucking the pen behind her ear, she handed her clipboard to one of the elder liches. Good afternoon, Lady Shiltir. Her knee-length skirts fluttered in the wind as she respectfully curtsied. I hope the day finds you well. Good afternoon, Lady Wagner, Shiltir replied. I'm surprised to find you here. Under whose authority have you? Her words trailed off, and she looked around again. Pandora's actor, she frowned at Baroness Wagner. Whatever are you doing? He, the human noble cackled, it's my win. The 3 elder liches sighed, and Pestonia tittered at Lady Shiltir's side. Indeed, it is, the homunculus head maid said. But I will still consider this outcome a win, in other ways. Suppose I can't deny you that, Pandora's actor replied. Shiltir glanced over her shoulder at Pestonia before returning her gaze to the form of Baroness Wagner. Would someone be so kind as to explain what is going on? She asked. Kinda like a wager? Lady Wagner, Pandora's actor grinned, about how you'd react seeing a human in front of Nazarick. The elder liches predicted that you'd immediately exterminate the interloper. Pestonia thought you'd capture her, and I said you'd try and figure out what was going on first. What a preposterous thing to make a wager over, aren't you? Shiltir sniffed. We should be getting this grain processed, yes? Why are you frolicking around as Leanne Wagner, aren't you? We're gonna be conducting a simple experiment before we really get things going here, Pandora's actor explained. His Majesty wants to not only explore the development of the adventurers, but how to fix up the civilian population as well. With the summer harvest, we've got the opportunity to get a good measure of various people around the realm, data for our research, or something like that. How will you do that, Arinsuka? Shiltir asked. In response, Pandora's actor withdrew an object from his inventory. With this, Lady Wagner's voice rang out in a grand declaration. Shiltir peered at the item held up over Pandora's actor's head. With the exchange box? Shiltir tilted her head. Also, you're talking like Baroness Wagner is starting to make me feel itchy. With the exchange box? He nodded with a smile. The conversion rate of the exchange box is contingent on the merchant levels of the operator. The volume of the harvest from each village is large enough that we should be able to treat each shipment of grain as a controlled variable, though we will do it several times with taxes from different villages, just to be sure. Pandora's actor nodded to the elder liches, and one proceeded to the first wagon awaiting on the platform. The Death Knights stationed there tipped the grain out into the bin. The 2 other elder liches scooped out crates of grain, delivering them to Pandora's actor. I see, Shiltir said, it is for this reason that you've copied Leanne Wagner, Arinsun. Correct, the form of Leanne Wagner puffed out her petite chest. Though we have no way to determine levels directly, we can do so through indirect means. We understand how the exchange box functions, thus we can derive our measure through its output. Now, how about another wager? Shiltir watched as more and more wagons exited the gate, arranging themselves neatly over the nearby grassland. They would be here for a while. Why not? She shrugged. What do you have in mind, Arinsuka? I have 3 civilian forms stored, Pandora's actor said, and I will be going through various known merchants as we process taxes over the next while. Of those currently stored, the first is Baroness Wagner, the second, an old lumber magnate from Jesn County. Finally, I have a middle-aged woman who sells ice cream for a living in Irantel's main plaza. Out of the 3, who do you believe will offer the most favorable exchange rate? Has this old magnate earned great renown amongst his peers? Shiltir asked. As far as I understand, Pandora's actor replied, he is only known locally, with no outstanding achievements credited to his long career. Then I'll go with Lady Wagner, Shiltir said. Is there any particular reason for your selection? This isn't favoritism, is it? Shiltir thought Leanne Wagner a bright and attractive young woman of clear usefulness, and she did favor her over most humans, but it hadn't factored into her decision in this particular instance. It's because, she told him, despite her young age, she is already well known as a capable and ambitious merchant, aren't you? She is from an established merchant bloodline, and has learned directly from her family since childhood. I see, the form of Leanne Wagner rubbed her chin, so you would use the same logic that has been demonstrated with Baroness Saradnik, bloodline, tradition, education, and personal ability coming together to result in a superior specimen. That's exactly right, aren't you? Shiltir nodded. A reasonable choice, then. What about you, Pestonia-san? I choose the magnate, Pestonia said. Though Baroness Wagner is indeed all the things Shiltir-sama has chosen her for, we cannot say that this magnate does not enjoy the same foundation. He may not have earned any great fame, but his long life should have afforded him the time and experiences to grow that the Baroness has not. Shiltir bit her lip upon hearing Pestonia's reasoning. She had a good point. Decades of accumulated experience should probably amount to something substantial. The expression sounded strange in Lady Wagner's voice. Another solid conjecture. Then I will go with the ice cream merchant, not just to be a good sport, mind you. I truly believe that she will come out on top. Why would a simple ice cream merchant be superior to an experienced magnate or a talented individual with ambition and fame? Pandora's actor set down the exchange box, adjusting its dimensions before retrieving the first crate. An elder lich stood by to record their findings as bushel after bushel of grain vanished into the exchange box. After 95 crates were emptied, a single Yggdrasil gold coin appeared. A 5% reduction in the conversion threshold. Pandora's actor nodded to the elder lich, who recorded the findings. Shiltir frowned and retrieved a forest green notepad from her inventory, flipping through the pages. It takes 100 bushels of grain for a single Yggdrasil gold coin? Pestonia muttered. What sort of grain is this, one? Oats, Pandora's actor replied. Due to the shortened season that resulted from our initial difficulties, we settled on a fast-growing crop for the royal domain. The fact that we had detailed and accurate local data for preparing this particular crop was also a factor in the decision to do so. A bushel of oats is enough flour for 24 loaves of bread, Pestonia said. This rate of exchange seems quite poor, compared to the cost of food in the city. A bushel of oats sells for 2 silver, 9 and 4/10 ths of a copper. Shiltir found the note she was looking for, at least according to the market prices at the beginning of the harvest. If 1 Yggdrasil gold coin is worth 2 Riastais gold coins, we're looking at some dire returns here. Indeed, Pandora's actor said. 100 bushels of oats would net us 24.75 Riastais gold coins if sold at that rate. Even accounting for the relative value of a Yggdrasil gold coin, well, the exchange box is already known to provide a fraction of base commodity values. In addition, food prices are inflated due to the shortages in Riastais, so it makes things seem that much worse. Should we be using the exchange box at all, if this is the case? Pestonia asked. I feel that this food would be better put to use in some other fashion. Well, dumping this grain on the market will have the effect of lowering its market value, Pandora's actor said. We'll be competing with our own merchants as well. The taxes and rent for undead labor are only a minor portion of the Sorceress Kingdom's total harvest, and Albedo has dipped her fingers into the commodities markets in Riastais to take advantage of the oncoming glutton supply. Converting this much should be fine. That was the first Shiltir had heard of any such thing. What was Albedo up to? She would need to ask the real Baroness Wagner if she had any idea of what might be going on. After producing 4 more Yggdrasil gold coins, the form of Lady Wagner warped and melted like so much wax, reforming itself into the balding figure of an aged human male. Shiltir as he only took 91 bushels to produce a coin. Pandora's actor repeated the process with the ice cream merchant, who produced a Yggdrasil gold coin with 86 bushels. The ice cream merchant put on an insolently smug look that Shiltir would have swatted off of her face if she saw it in the main plaza of Erantal. "I don't understand," she pouted. "Why is a stupid ice cream merchant superior to an experienced magnate or Baroness Wagner? Did you really expect this result, Arinsuka?" "I had a sense that it would turn out this way," Pandora's actor said. "The studies of our Adventurer Guild members provided me with the clues for this outcome. It also appears that the improvement of conversion rates has diminishing returns. Nearata Summer's form took 70 bushels of oats, yet the relative difference between these locals and Nearata Summer is far more vast by comparison." "How did the adventurers clue you in on merchant levels?" Shiltir asked. "They're entirely different things, aren't you? The people of this world grow in a distinctly different manner from Yggdrasil entities," he explained. "For Yggdrasil beings, with levels come skills, spells, abilities and the immediate access to everything else that the level provides. Past that point, it is a matter of execution. The adventurers do not progress in this manner. Gaining in strength does not automatically provide them with new spells, martial arts, skills or abilities, nor do they understand the limits and applications of their improved capabilities. Sometimes, they do not even realize what they are capable of. There is no convenient guidance system that will point them to anything made newly available upon gaining their levels. Nearly everything they accomplish is built on generations of knowledge and hard work, or dependent on their own effort, talent and intellect." "So you're saying that these merchants are subject to the same difficulties, one?" "That's correct. My hypothesis is that every vocation in this world has these same challenges. These people do not inherently utilize the full capacity of their classes, and various circumstances lead to various levels of utilization." Shiltir frowned, mind working to understand the broader implications of what was being said. "So Lady Wagner only seems to be a high-level merchant relative to everyone else because she is squeezing more out of her class levels than these 2 others are getting, because their circumstances or ambitions don't demand it?" "Just so," Pandora's actor nodded. "The magnate has lived comfortably for his entire life, and the ice cream merchant has been doing the same thing for her entire career. There are no motivations that would drive them into harnessing more of their class potential." "But it doesn't explain why they are higher in level," Pestonia said. "The adventurers work hard and rapidly gain in levels, so Baroness Wagner, who has a high degree of class utilization, should be advancing in a similar way for her hard work." "I believe it is related to your initial thoughts on the lumber magnate," Pandora's actor said. "Both Baroness Wagner and the lumber magnate operate at the top levels of their respective organizations, but the magnate has had the time to accrue more experience. The number of direct merchant actions that they conduct is limited, while this ice cream merchant conducts business directly every day. By the same token, the best merchants under this magnate or Lady Wagner will probably be significantly higher level than their employers. Shouldn't this lead to merchants becoming more successful than their employers and overturning them?" Shiltir asked. "It is not as straightforward as combat-centric vocations," Pandora's actor answered. "Outside factors have a great effect on civilian ventures: capital, connections, influence, ability. One who inherits a merchant company has its resources at their disposal and the rights to its direction. As long as they run things with the bare minimum of competence, the tables are not so easily turned. A high-level merchant that leaves his company to establish his own essentially loses all of the leverage and resources represented by the organization that he left." "So if we leave Baroness Wagner in charge of an ice cream stand," Shiltir said, "she will become quite the amazing merchant." Pandora's actor chuckled, seemingly bemused by the idea. "That might be interesting to see," he said. "But also keep in mind that we are mostly groping about blindly when it comes to this world's civilian vocations. The vast majority identified so far did not exist in Yggdrasil, and we do not know where they lead. Forcing people into specific paths might work to a specific degree, but individuals like Wagner are complex. She is a merchant noble, and there are few hints as to how they develop or what they ultimately might become. If those in leadership provide bonuses to their subjects, and a militant noble manifests command capabilities, a merchant noble might also provide some sort of bonus to the merchants working under them. In that case, it is a better path where one who provides benefits to many, who in turn are allowed to focus on their own specializations. Pestonia scratched her cheek as they listened to his reply, and Shiltir wasn't quite sure what to think of it at all. That gives us a lot to think about. 1. Yuri Alpha will surely be interested in this information for the sake of developing her curriculum. If we had limited lifespans like these humans, Pandora's actor said, it would be a monumental effort, one that requires generations of work on a broad scale to research and develop, prone to losses in direction and focus. Fortunately we do not have this problem. We will figure it out eventually, be it in 1,000 years or 10,000 years. Pandora's actor transformed into Nirata Summer and continued with his work, while Pestania and Shiltir equalized their mana to keep the gate running. Pestania walked off to sit down and watch the flow of wagons, but Shiltir lingered. Are we to do this every day until the taxes and rent have all been converted, Arinsuka? She asked. For the first day or two, Pandora's actor answered. Albedo is being extra careful about security in the warehouse. Once she gives the go-ahead, we'll be doing this in the government warehouse. That's a relief, Shiltir said. It would take weeks to transfer all of this otherwise. She continued watching Pandora's actor work, tapping a finger against her arm idly. Was there something else you wished to discuss? Pandora's actor asked. I told her, Shiltir answered. Already? Either you have a great degree of confidence in this frost dragon, or she has shown some incredible progress. It is both, I suppose, Shiltir said. I should thank you for your thoughts on the matter. Ma, your exceptional intuition provided the initial direction. Without it, I wouldn't have had anything to explore and expand upon in the first place. Will it work? I do not know, Pandora's actor shrugged. In this new world, where so much is unknown, those with keen intuition hold advantages that those who rely on intellect can only wish they had. Demiurge, Albedo and I require at least some data to work with. You, Maya, and Aura, on the other hand, will often discern what is right through mere feeling alone. Do you know why this is? It is how we were designed, is it not? He replied, Demiurge, Albedo and I were created to be peerless intellects in our own respective fields, while you, Maya and Aura are a cleric, druid and ranger respectively, classes well known for intuition and empathy. I would wager that these tendencies extend to all of us in Nazarick with our respective settings. Our settings, speaking of which, I am not self-serving like that frost dragon. You are not, Pandora's actor agreed. The rest, however. Shiltir looked down at the grass, fighting to keep the disquieting feeling roiling deep within from changing her expression. Even to this day, she had no memory of what she had done, and she never would. All she had were the accounts of the others, and all she could do was helplessly think about what had gone through the mind of the Shiltir of that time as she did what she had done. Impulsive and willful. Arrogant, capricious and ruthless. All but helpless to the whims of her created nature when she indulged in her savage lusts and carnal pleasures. She could only imagine what had led to her downfall, her great failure. Her beloved had forgiven her, yet it would always remain, a thorn, lodged deep in her heart. Shiltir shook her head. No, she couldn't keep dwelling on it any more, and she might just dive headfirst into the exchange box. After taking a deep breath, she looked up from her introspection and found Pandora's actor looking over at her with a teasing expression. Humph, Shiltir turned her head with a snort. The Shiltir of tomorrow will be different from the Shiltir of today. I will not allow the mistakes of the past to be repeated.